one, everything changed. In Botswana currently, I don't know anybody who has the same condition. I remember one of the doctors looking at my prescription and said, you should never miss a day without taking your meds, because if you do, you're going to die. I started having this extreme fatigue. My body would just itch the whole night. I would literally not sleep the whole night because my body is itchy and there's nothing that stops it. I started seeing a different person in the mirror. I started struggling to do certain things. Open bottles, like I say. I wouldn't be able to buy a drink if I'm alone. Everything changed. Nothing was ever the same.
Welcome back to GaonaLive Conversations in the new year. We're back! Now, before we get into today's episode, please make sure to hit the subscribe button, to like, comment, and share this episode with everyone around you. And also want to really just take this moment to thank you for indulging in our content. Now, on today's episode, I'm in conversation with Tsaone, a bubbly 36-year-old mommy and HR professional who has Dermatomyositis and Scleroderma, two very rare skin and muscle conditions. Now, let's get into her story.
Tsaone, thank you very much for doing this, for, having this conversation today and for, taking this opportunity to create awareness about a condition that you have. And I've deliberately noted it because, I thought endometriosis was a hard word to pronounce, but, this is a bit of a challenge. So you have a condition called dermatomyositis, right? We're going to unpack this, but first of all, let me just start by saying thank you. I love saying, sharing our stories, I feel, is one of the greatest acts of service towards humanity, because through you doing this, somebody out there feels seen, feels heard, feels less isolated, or at the bare minimum, just gets to know that, there is a condition such as this. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So before we get to the condition, I just want to know a little bit about you. So I want you to take us back in time, way back in time. Who was Tsaone growing up? What was that like? And ultimately, how aware of your skin were you growing up?
I've always been a very loud person. At home, they always shouted to me because I laugh. And I laugh a lot.
You laugh?
I laugh a lot. I remember when I closed Form 5, I found my sister had had a baby. So every time I burst out laughing, the baby would cry. That's how loud you are. That's how loud I am. So I was always a happy baby. Very compassionate. I love being around people. I love people. So I was just a very introverted, extroverted person. Like, I would keep in my corner, but if time and space allows, I'll be the loudest person in the room. So yeah, and growing up, yes, I had a bit of the teenage stage acne. I had a lot of acne, but it was just a stage and it passed. And so I got to appreciate the growth and the change I experienced without having to do anything. I grew up just out with the acne, and yeah, I never had skin issues at all. I'm an HR professional by profession, and I just love, I love cooking. I love being at home. For me, that's all the fun I do. I read, I do movies. I can watch TV all day, but you'll find me at home. That's my kind of fun. If I go out, it's with friends at my house or their house. And then there will be church, family gatherings here and there. That boring.
You and me could be friends, actually. You and me could live.
Yeah.
And from you just mentioned church. So from a spirituality perspective, have you always been a spiritual person? You're talking about church. How significant is church, in your life?
God is everything to me. I was raised by an Adventist. I grew up in church. I then went to Sunday school because I had moved to live with my sister, who was faith mission. So for me, there has not been life without God, not just church. It was so inbuilt in us that it's Monday, to Friday, you're school or work, Saturday or Sunday, you are at church. So there has not been any other life for me other than a life anchored around God. So, yeah, I'm very spiritual. I believe in God, and that's all I'm about.
This very tough word, dermatomyositis, was it something that you had ever come across, like ever come across? I know with my endometriosis, until I was diagnosed, I'd never come across this ever, never even heard of the condition. So was this something that you had come across anyway, even in a magazine, in a TV show, anything really?
Absolutely not. It was the first time I ever heard of such a word. And I was shocked because even on TV, we grow up watching TV.
Yeah.
We grow up seeing things that we probably don't know in our spaces. We get to see them on the internet. We get to see them on TV. Even with TikTok and all that, I never knew about this condition until I walked into the doctor's office and they said, you have
this is what it is.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now your journey with the skin transformation. When did this begin? You know what I mean? And what were the signs? So I really just want you to take us into it, because I don't think you woke up one day and your skin looked different. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So what happened?
2017, I was expecting my last born. So the pregnancy started off having a bit of challenges. It was just a bit rocky. But when you are pregnant, everybody will say it's the hormones, it's that.
Of course.
Everybody had an explanation of what I was going through. And unfortunately, for my gynecologist, I think the signs were just too similar with those that of a pregnant woman that it was very difficult, almost impossible for her to pick if there was a problem. But one distinct thing about my pregnancy is I couldn't eat, and I kept losing weight. And so I remember she tried to give me multivites. So I really didn't like taking medication when I was pregnant, unless it was necessary. So I remember she prescribed some medication and didn't tell me what it was for. I got to the pharmacy and I asked the pharmacist, what is this for? What is this for? What is this for? So she told me, she's given you a lot of multivites. Are you throwing up a lot and stuff? So I said, no, I'm not. And then he was like, but this is to make you eat more. And then I said, don't give me those. I'll just improve on my diet. So it is then that after the pregnancy, I went back to my scans and my reports and I realized there was a problem here. And I'd wished my gynecologist could have explained what was going on. Because for her, she just concentrated on me gaining weight and didn't even get to engage me on, let's work on this way, just to get a feel of how I would have probably loved to go about it. So after I gave birth to my son, I started having this extreme fatigue. My body would just itch the whole night. I would literally not sleep the whole night because my body is itchy and there's nothing that stops it. And there was this fatigue. Everybody would say, no, it's because you're a nursing mom, even pregnancy, post-pregnancy, you are tired, you've been carrying. There were so many explanations from parents to friends to doctors. So it wasn't only after the pregnancy that I said, no, but this is not normal.
Especially, I can imagine having had two before, like you're like, no, but I can imagine perhaps as a first-time mother, you would believe, okay, maybe this is what it is. Maybe this is just one of those postpartum, experiences that perhaps could be rare to me, but
it was just a bit unusual. Yeah. So one day my mom said, today you're not sleeping. Let's take you to the doctor. I went to the doctor. It was weekend. So I just went to the nearest clinic and the lady examined me and immediately gave me some steroids, which were for me a dose that was a little bit higher for somebody who we didn't know was was what the problem was at the time. I was on those steroids, I think, for like 7 days. I went back, she ran more blood tests, and she realized, no, there's something much more going on with you here. She was a GP. So she referred me to a specialist GP in GPH. And then he also ran a few tests. And then he diagnosed me with polymyositis. At the time, that was March 2018.
And then, what is polymyositis?
Polymyositis is also an autoimmune disorder. It affects the muscles more than the skin. Okay. Dermatomyositis affects the skin more than it does the muscles. But both the conditions, appear the same. Yes.
Okay. I'm curious, perhaps before we go further, at this stage, like it's like, of course, you've mentioned the kind of signs and symptoms that you were getting. Has your skin started changing, or it's more the fatigue and just the itchy skin, but no physical changes at that stage yet?
Yes, it was just the itchy. There were no physical evident changes. Yeah. It was just the itching and the loss of muscle strength. I couldn't open cans and bottles. I couldn't lift certain things. That was the first thing I noticed. Because at some point I couldn't even open a toothpaste. But wake up in the morning and I wouldn't even be able to open a toothpaste. I would use my teeth. That was one of the things that, raised an eyebrow for me. Yeah.
So now you're diagnosed with polymyositis.
Then
at that stage, right?
Yes.
So now, what then are you given to manage? And of course, what do you think? Like you've just gotten diagnosed with this condition. What are the thoughts you have in this moment?
I think I was in denial at the time. It was just, I didn't know what polymyositis was also even at the time. And mind you, I had a 2-month-old baby. And I'm one of those mothers who believe in exclusive breastfeeding for the first 6 months. So it meant I had to start medication immediately, stop breastfeeding immediately. But for me, I think the first question was, could this have in any way gone to my son?
Naturally, as a mother.
Yeah, but by God's grace, it has nothing to do with him. It's something you can't transfer to them. So yes, at the time, I'm diagnosed with polymyositis, and I start treatment immediately and stop breastfeeding immediately. But then I'm there with my son, tending for him, just as a normal mother would.
What does treatment look like at that stage? And do you feel instant relief or an instant difference? Does it actually, relieve you of these symptoms in that season?
No, I was just given tablets. That's all the medication I could get. But then I also relied on physio.
Okay.
It helped me a lot. That was the only remedy to the fatigue. As for the itchiness, it went with time, but I was just on medication. Yeah.
Now, my assumption is then this went on to develop further for us to get to the So what then happens beyond that point? You know what I mean? Of course, I know you're on medication. You feel a little better, especially with the physio. Does it now progress further?
Yes, it progresses. Actually given the highest possible dose a human being could be given on steroids and other medication that tries to curb the condition from progressing and rapidly so. So just from then, I started gaining weight. So much weight. You'd look at my face as if it was going to burst. Where there is so much happening that you realize this skin can't take this much weight anymore. This body can't take this weight anymore. So I went on it. I remember one of the doctors looking at my prescription and said, you should never miss a day without taking your meds, because if you do, you're going to die. That's how bad the dose you are on steroids is, because that is the highest possible dose you can be given. And I was 30 at the time. So the medication was a lot, but the condition wasn't getting better. So I met a cousin of mine who's a doctor. Then he referred me to a dermatologist. This is a specialist who deals with these conditions, which was then based in Marina. Then I went to Marina and then I got a proper diagnosis of dermatomyositis. Fortunately or unfortunately for me, the medication is just slightly different because at least they're both autoimmune disorders. So they just had to change doses, remove this here and there, and then I carried on with my medication.
You spoke about reaching a point where your face was like, almost ready to pop. Like, I don't know how else to explain it, but take us back there a little bit and tell me just how that was for you. Are you then in that stage taking that high dosage of steroids and your body is almost just exploding? Are you functioning normally, like from every other dimension or facet of your life? What the wrong, with baby, the skin isn't itching anymore. It's just now that you are dealing with, or are you still not well? So I really just want you to paint a picture of what everything else looked like in your life in that moment.
One, everything changed. I started seeing a different person in the mirror. I started struggling to do certain things. Open bottles, like I say. I wouldn't be able to buy a drink if I'm alone. Because then I'll have to ask someone, please open for me. I wouldn't walk from a parking space to a shop without having to stop and sit down. You know where Vision Active is? From Vision Active to Checkers in Airport Junction. I'd need to make 2-3 stops because just that small walk for me felt like going up a hill. Yeah. So everything changed. Nothing was ever the same.
And where are your kids in this stage? Because you mentioned the fact that you had 2 older ones, before you had this 3rd one.
Yeah.
Where are they? How are they interacting with mommy? What do they think is happening? Are you even sitting them down to explain what it is? Because I can imagine, how relating with them. Of course, you know what I mean? So I'm just wondering how that was.
I think my kids never felt it. And I think for me, that was my happy place. So I did everything for them. There was a point my wrists wouldn't allow me to lift them. So I would ask them to lift up their hands and I put my hands there so I can pick them up, So I don't think, because they were so young, I don't think they felt it or saw it. What I do know is, I think there were bad days where I wouldn't leave the bed, and I think that's the closest they could have told that there's something wrong with Ma. But hard as it was, I think I was there to bath them, cook for them, feed them, take them to school, play with them. For them, they were still so tiny. So at the time, difficult as it was, I don't think they felt it. Yeah, and I think for me, they were my strength.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And would you say that was your rock bottom, like as far as the condition is concerned, at that particular stage you're talking about where now you're literally struggling to walk a couple of meters, the face is all puffed up, the body, because of those steroids.
Yeah.
Did it get any worse than that, or was that the worst stage?
I think it got worse as we went on, but I think it was hard. It was dark then because I didn't know what was going on.
Because of the transition.
Yes, I was like, no, what is this? When is it going to stop? I need to be myself again, So I think then more than it was an issue of self-identity, because this is a whole new person.
Yeah.
I'm that light girl. I have nice hair. And here I am starting to lose my hair, my complexion. I think the things that people don't see. And the other thing about the condition is up until the skin starts changing, I'm just normal. It's not like someone who has a wound or someone who has diabetes. Everybody knows diabetes, even if your hand is not chopping off when you're walking on the streets. But everybody can relate.
Yeah.
But for me, I would be so tired that I can't even walk from the gate to the house. And nobody would understand.
Yeah.
I think it was the hardest for me to try and explain to people, but this is how I feel. I'm sick. Because there was no sign. No, and I think people misinterpreted it for that laziness.
Yeah.
And, you don't want to keep explaining to everybody that I can't do this, my fingers hurt, my wrist hurt. It's like,
Of course.
But then again, you sit there and you just fold your arms. People still feel like,
that's it.
Yeah.
So up until the skin started changing, it was hard for people to believe you're sick. You know what I mean?
Yes.
But it's almost like, so, ow. So would you say then, when the skin started changing, people started believing you were sick? But also the correlation, I think something that I'm really curious about is the correlation between, muscles and muscle strength and skin. You know what I mean? Is that something that you ever really tried to interrogate, like the relationship between these two conditions? Are they just two separate conditions and you just happen to have both of them? Or, did one happen as a result of the other? Or sorry, is there, some kind of relationship between the two of them?
They're both autoimmune disorders. Fast forward to 2020, I was diagnosed with scleroderma. It's also an autoimmune disorder.
So this is now the third diagnosis.
Yes, but now it was confirmed that I have dermatomyositis overlapping with scleroderma. Rare conditions as they are on their own. It's also very rare to have both of them. So I have both of them, and scleroderma is it's also aggressive on the skin. It tightens the skin. It literally just changes you. The woman you see sitting here today is not the woman I was 5 years ago. And also the dermatomyositis as well. It affects the skin. So I've got two conditions fighting for space. And also not only externally but internally as well.
Yeah.
Yes. So you find my treatment is like, I don't want to see a trial and error because my doctors are doing the best they can. But they have not treated a person like me before.
Who had both.
Yeah. They have dealt with scleroderma. They have dealt with dermatomyositis separately. So I can't even tell you for now, this is my treatment. It changes every time. Every month I go to see my doctor, I do blood tests, and based on whatever they're seeing at the time, treated accordingly. Next month, if it changes, the treatment changes. So on a monthly basis, I'm with the doctor taking bloods so they can monitor the progress. The condition affects your internal organs, your heart, your lungs, your liver, all the major ones. So they pick which one, which puts me at high risk, because if maybe I was dealing with scleroderma, it would pick the heart, and I deal with the heart.
Yeah.
But now there's scleroderma and dermatomyositis. So if each one picks the heart and the lung, then that's how complicated it
gets.
Yeah.
Could it ever get fatal, or is it something that you will just live with for the rest of your life, but we can never get to a point where we see this person's life was taken by this particular condition? It's not even easy for me to ask, this question, but I'm just wondering.
It's not curable. There's no cure for either the two. So the only thing they can do is keep me alive.
Yeah.
Trying to make my life as normal as it can get with the medication available. Worst case scenarios, fingers become like this. They don't move. Some, the skin gets so tight, your teeth are exposed with your mouth closed, but it just pulls and pulls and pulls until you have a mouth that doesn't close or a nose that just goes back and exposes the inside of your nose. And yeah, that's how bad it can get. And of course, eventually, if you don't get help, you can succumb. Yeah.
I want you to take me back to now the skin changes, because initially what you mentioned was you were dealing with the muscle, weakness and, the fatigue and that. But over time, it progressed to, now being, isn't the dermatomyositis that affects the skin more?
Both.
Okay, yeah. So I just want us to talk about that transition. Yeah, the skin changes. What was that first change that you noticed in your skin? Because there you are talking about initially you used to be light skinned, you had a very good skin, minus the acne in your teens, but you generally had good skin. So what was that first change that you noticed for you to worry, you know what I mean? That got you thinking, how Nariano. Yeah.
I started having patches. Small patches. Okay, you know how, I don't know what we call it. I don't even think there's an English word for it, but dipala.
Yes.
I started experiencing it on my legs. And, I would be itchy at night. When I wake up and check where it was itching, I would find those patches. So it started going up my thighs, and then it started on my chest and the back. And then slowly but surely it went to the face. But it was just patches that you could hide with a powder or foundation. And then that was first year. But then when I started with the steroids, the medication made me black. Like, there was a time my sister looked at me and said, "You are not black, now you are purple."
Ah,
it was so bad. I look back, I think last year at those pictures, and I thank God for where I was today.
Right?
Because I was like,
who is this person?
So after I stopped the treatment, the weight obviously went down. The skin remained very dark. And then 2020, I started having this salt and pepper look. It started on the forehead. And then it went down. Even on my eyelids, they were there. Then I started losing lashes and eyebrows. I lost my hair. Yeah, so that was the worst of it.
I have had a conversation with somebody who has vitiligo, and one of the questions I asked is, what is your relationship with the mirror, right? So I think I'd like to ask you the same question. What is your relationship with the mirror? What was your relationship even in those years as you were changing, right? Because it's something we take for granted. We do almost keep putting on, you're like, oh, hey, you know what I mean? Oh my goodness, So I can imagine now seeing yourself change like that.
Yeah.
You're talking about literally your sister saying you actually look purple right now. Tell me about that,
I've never been that girly girl. I just grab my jeans, teeth, and I'm out of the house. So I think maybe it was also the fact that there was nothing for me to fix up.
Yeah,
so
perhaps.
I didn't feel the need to. But one thing I thank God for is, in as much as I noticed every change, there's never been a point where I shied away from looking at myself in the mirror. I don't like taking pictures now. But I have never tried to hide any change. I just said, you know what, I need to get used to myself first. And I wouldn't say it's a journey. I don't think it will ever stop, because it doesn't stop. When you think you're done with this part, it's your fingers, you're doing your manicure, and you're looking at them and like, they look like my mom's, you know. So I think it will always be something I have to learn to live with.
Has it ever been hard looking at yourself in the mirror, though?
Absolutely.
I can imagine it definitely cannot be easy. And I think if there's something that I'm wondering, just looking at society now, because of course you're already dealing with so much internally. You're dealing with so much from an emotional perspective, from a mental perspective, from a physical perspective. But then you have to coexist within a community that doesn't quite understand what you're going through. I want us to explore that a little bit, because I can imagine that it hasn't been easy. What has that been like? Do you have to explain yourself to, people that you meet with? Do you find that people stare? Has there been, has that affected you in any way? Or is it easy for you to navigate interacting with the community with all the changes that have taken place?
Those who dare to ask, I'm happy to share.
Yeah.
Those who make conclusions, I once heard some family members, distant cousins, saying I have skin cancer. Some said I have AIDS. So it's translating into a skin problem. I don't explain myself to such, but I don't shy away from sharing, because, for me, in Botswana currently, I don't know anybody who has the same condition. I do have met people who have lupus, who have rheumatoid arthritis, because they're relatives. But I haven't met anybody with the same exact condition as me. And it occurs to me sometimes to say, I wonder what would happen to a mother who would have a child having this condition. And I don't want to believe that I'm the only one. I just think I was very fortunate and blessed to have a diagnosis done as early as it was. I still believe today we have people who have this condition and they don't know what is going on with them. So I'm really, if I get a chance to talk about my condition, I do it. I do it wholeheartedly. And if you ask, people don't really stare at me. I think, they just don't notice that, unless, of course, for those that knew me. Those are the ones who ask. And sometimes people have walked right past me in the mall because they don't recognize me. And those are some of the things that really hurt me. Because I think then that's when I realized, now people are realizing and noticing the changes. So I think those that dare to ask, I share willingly, yes.
What happens in an unfortunate instance that somebody who knows you just passes you by? Is it one of those wouldn't, it's okay, or do you stop them to, interact?
Some I do.
I can imagine how much it hurts. It hurts. You just mentioned that.
Yeah. It gets tiring because that's like the whole world. So sometimes I do. I always make sure those that I know I have a good relationship with them, whether acquaintances or classmates, churchmates. I explain myself. There was a time I was traveling. I was arriving at the border, and I had worked with this lady for more than 5 years. So I saw her and I said, hi. And then she said, Dumela. She's a very jolly person. And then she passed. And then I said, hey, Tamba, this is hello. You know, that girl cried. That day I didn't cry. She just covered her face and said, what happened? So I told her. So when I'm, we all have those bad days. When I'm not on one of those, I will tell you, hi, it's me. Remember, so and so from this place. So
and then you're going to explain the fact that I know you may not recognize me because.
Yes.
Okay.
I do that.
Oh, wow. But from because this is something that I think we take for granted, but somebody who sees that there's a resemblance but is not sure, what advice would you give? Should they rather ask you about, the changes and what could have happened? You just mentioned that lady ordering, she broke down and she was like, who did I the number?
Yeah.
Is that what you'd prefer people to say, or would you prefer to volunteer the information? Like, how does it feel when somebody says, Emma, is that what you prefer? Just to at least, get it out of the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fine, especially for the people who knew me before.
Yeah.
I don't take offense at all. Like, what happened? Obviously, something happened.
That's it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm really comfortable with somebody saying, what happened to your face? Because, sometimes we withhold certain things. Maybe somebody has a cure.
That's it.
Yeah. Maybe somebody has had, I met a lady who had lupus. She doesn't have it anymore. But she says, there's no treatment. I tell you I did. It was just God's grace. I woke up one day and this thing was gone. I did my bloods and there was nothing, So, when you shy away from, it's an honest conversation. It's just a health condition.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Let's talk about, perhaps before we even get to spirituality, your family. Like you mentioned, that you have a sister, earlier you spoke about looking at your fingers and saying, Okare, kita hamam.
Yeah.
Right? How has your family been affected by this? You know what I mean? Of course, being the people closest to you, the people who deeply care for you, is it something that, has affected them, in any way? And how are they supporting you?
Yeah, the last one, I must mention.
Baby of the family.
Yes. Of 3 ladies, I'm the third one from a single parent household, our mother. Hey, I think it has been hard, so hard for them, and it really hurt them a lot. I remember my older sister once said, I wish God gave it to me.
Oh.
And so they pray for me. They're very supportive. I feel sorry for my mother because she's the one person who I think feels the most pain.
Yeah.
She buys so many herbs every day. She brings something new. Try this, it cleanses, try that. With her small monies that she makes every month, she can go out and buy me something that is even worth 2,000 pila just because she's desperate to see me get better.
Get better.
Yeah, and but their support has been so immeasurable. Very grateful to have them in my life.
And I think that's something that we take for granted, when dealing with whatever kind of heaviness that you're carrying, whether it's a skin condition. I know, of course, I've been mentioning, my struggle with endometriosis, that it has affected more than just me, my family, my sisters, my mother, my close circle has been affected.
Yeah.
So it's something that we take for granted, the effect that it has on the people around you, but also, we can never take for granted the support. I always say to people, I still stand and I walk this tall and strong because of my support system. So it's great that you have people around you, who are, your prayer warriors who are rallying, around you,
Anything.
Who are your strength when you're feeling weak. Your relationship with God. Initially, you mentioned that, you are a church girl. You grew up a church girl.
Yeah.
You continue to be a church girl. Would you say this affected your relationship with God in any ways? Because I know sometimes when it gets hard, rather,
Yeah.
So has that ever been a thing for you?
No, I have.
Wow.
No. I have so many questions. I ask him questions. But there's not a single point that, in as much as it hurt, emotionally and physically, it has never occurred to me to think, where are you, God?
No.
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, I think it has improved my faith and my relationship with God, because I kept saying to God, there must be something big that you want to teach the world through me. Yeah, so, and if it's going to happen, I'm very grateful that God picked me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If anything, I think it's a positive thing that it has affected my life, my spiritual journey. Yeah.
What would you say, and this is me assuming you've heard God's whispers through this journey, right? You've had points where you've heard God communicating with you, you know, as he continues to carry you through this, especially because, you know, one thing that you're seeing with so much conviction is that you've never felt God as abundant. Yeah. What are these whispers that you would say you've heard from God over the years? You know what I mean? What is the reassurance that you say you've gotten from God over the years? Because, you know, and I feel it's so critical, because I think sometimes we get so consumed in our pain that we don't even hear God speaking to us, right? We don't even hear those whispers in the midst of the pain, because just in what I'm consumed in just how much it hurts, right? So perhaps just through you, so the next person can also perhaps take a minute to slow down and listen. Would you say you've heard God's whispers?
Yeah.
Would you say God has communicated with you throughout this tough journey?
Yeah. My pregnancy, it looks like this condition started while I was pregnant. My son was born I went into labor, but it quickly turned into an emergency C-section.
Right.
He came on my birthday.
Oh,
I share son with my birthday with my son. Yes. He came on my birthday, and when he came, the operation on its own was difficult. I couldn't go. My son was losing his heartbeat. And on that table, I could hear the anesthesia, that one.
Yeah.
And my gynecologist shouting at each other because the heart rate kept going down. The gynecologist wanted to start the operation, but I couldn't go. So they overdosed the anesthesia so that they can quickly save the baby. And then when the baby was saved, he wasn't breathing. He came, he wasn't breathing, and I couldn't wake up. He was taken to ICU, put in ventilators. He came at 1.8, slightly underweight, and they had to assist him to breathe. I took a bit longer than normal to wake up, and I eventually went to the ward. I remember the following day when I woke up, one of the nurses at ICU, Niku, baby came and said, hi. So I was like, hello. And she's like, are you the mother of Abale? And I said, yes. And then she said, I wanted to ask you something.
Yeah.
She's like, are you a Christian? And then I said, I'm a Christian. And then she says, because I'm here to tell you there is no medical explanation of why your son is alive. When he was removed, we found your placenta had been dead for quite some time. It was white, covered in infection. So, and it looked like it hadn't happened overnight, so it should have been days. So we have no idea what your son was feeding on, how he was breathing.
Oh, wow.
But your son is healthy. He just had difficulty breathing because his lungs are too small. No medication was administered. And that is one of the things that I said. God is glorifying himself in my life.
Absolutely.
The second time around, I went to South Africa. And when I got to the pharmacy to get my medication, the guy on the other side was saying, where is the patient? Is it a man or a woman? What? So I said, it's me. That guy said, no.
It can't be you.
The person on these papers can be walking the streets. This person is not alive.
So he's thinking this is somebody in critical condition.
And then the third time was 2022 when I went for my checkup. I got there and my doctor looked at my lungs. Unfortunately, the condition had started to affect my lungs. And he said, your lungs are torn. They are whatever, the scarring and tearing of the lungs. This we don't want to happen. You have to start chemotherapy immediately. I started chemotherapy. And I remember when we started it, my sister said, I asked God one thing, that the effects of the chemo doesn't affect you. The throwing up, the loss of hair, all that, we pray that God covers you. I have been on chemo for this past year for 6 months. I went in and out. I have not experienced the loss of hair. I think I threw up once or twice, only in the whole 6 months. And it can only be God.
Can be God.
Yes.
Can only be
I have
God.
done operations on these fingers, but I'm here today.
From a medication perspective, because of course you've been talking about, starting medication initially when you're diagnosed with one thing and then on to the next and then on to the next, steroids, chemo now. How affordable is this? I don't want to automatically assume it's expensive. And is this treatment that somebody can get through a public, health system as well? Because I'm imagining highly, medically, and they have this condition. Can they get any assistance? So is it expensive? Is it affordable? Can you get treatment through government assistance?
It is very expensive. It is very, as you can imagine, for me to get my next dose of medication, I need to do blood tests because I can have the white blood cells okay this month, the red blood cells not okay. So we take treatment to fix any discrepancies. The next month, it's the red blood cells that have a problem. The white blood cells are okay. So I can't take that treatment from last month, this month. So I've been using both private and local. And I think for me, using both of them has really been, it has been very helpful because sometimes our local hospitals will not have certain medication. And as you can imagine, it's very rare. So even if it comes, it's very small. Private pharmacies will get you what you want, but because it's two people or one person getting in to ask for that medication, they don't really keep it. So, sometimes I miss my treatment. I have gaps because it's not there. It's still being waited for. This one is being phased out. So it's very difficult to get treatment. I can imagine for someone who doesn't have medical aid, can be really an uphill battle.
Absolutely. And I remember during the pandemic with the lockdown and everything, a lot of people, especially with rare conditions, that medication couldn't even get, to the country.
Yes.
Was that a challenge that you experienced? Did you find that yours was readily available?
No, I'm one of those who struggled. For 2 years, I wasn't getting my medication properly and my health deteriorated.
Of course.
A lot because I'm also seeing a specialist in South Africa. So I couldn't get my medication. Some medications is not registered in Botswana. I have to buy that side in bulk. So for that 2 years, my condition really deteriorated. Yes, but as soon as these lockdowns and restrictions were lifted, I went back.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, as we wrap up, Tsaone, would you say, people normally say, every cloud has a silver lining, right? Is there any good so far that you would say has come out of you being on this journey, right? Sometimes it's very difficult to, find something, especially in a situation that we would otherwise, as society, interpret as gloomy, right? Would you say there's any, this has affected you positive, this has changed you, positive? Is there any kind of positive that in retrospect you're able to say, oh, but I get again, neighbor?
I think for me, one, as already mentioned, it's the improvement it has had on my walk with God.
Yeah.
And two, I think my outlook to life, I'm a very reserved person. My outlook to life, Hela, is you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Don't procrastinate. I had an issue of procrastination a lot. I'm still battling with it, but don't push anything for tomorrow.
Be in the moment.
Live right now. Tell your loved ones now. Do good things for them now. Now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, you might wake up and everything has changed. We say these things as if it's too far-fetched.
That's it.
But it's just right here under our nose. So I think for me, this condition has taught me, don't take, especially the people that mean a lot for you, because it's not about anything else. It comes down to love.
That's it.
Who you are. When I pass away today, the only thing that will be left in people's hearts is how I made them feel, how I lived with them, how, I think the sooner we realize that that's what life is about.
Yeah.
Nothing else really matters.
That's it.
Yeah. So for me, I look at life differently now. Yeah. When I wake up in the morning and I want to have ice cream with my last 10 people, I go and sit at Milk Lane and have ice cream.
Absolutely.
You remember my mom used to say, you need to watch your diet, don't eat this. And I tell them, guys, every one of you comes and tells me, don't do this. If I'm going to die, allow me to die happy. I'm going to eat everything.
Let me at least just have that,
Yeah, so I think we just need to appreciate what we have.
Absolutely.
Yeah, just whatever it is, no matter how small. I know we have dreams. We want to see ourselves somewhere in life. But let's not get too caught up
in the future, in the anxiety about the future, because the thing about it is we're not just even fixated on the future, but we're anxious about the future, right?
That's the only thing the future can give you, anxiety.
That's it.
We only have to.
There's so much life to live in the moment.
Thank you.
Tsaone, thank you so much
Thank you for having me.
For joining me for this conversation, for sharing, these words of wisdom. And really for the sacrifice that you've made for humanity on this platform. Like I say, just decided to share your story. You don't always your story. You don't always, your skin condition. This is something that is yours, and you don't need to become an activist, but you deciding, to do this, I feel is a sacrifice that we absolutely appreciate. And I know it'll definitely touch lives, and, may God bless your beautiful soul, and may all your prayers to him be answered, right? As far as that unwavering faith, that strong relationship that you have with him, very admirable. And it's definitely something that I'm, picking up and walking away with, hoping it rubs off onto me.
Take it.
Right? Thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
And you too, ma'am. Thank you.
All right.